Come on, come on, come on, jump, jump. Careful, careful, careful. Come on, come on, come on. Fucking yes! You know, I enjoy playing retro games, but unlike a lot of people, I make no pretenses about how I started doing it. I was shown it by people like, James Rolfe, also known as the Angry Video Game Nerd. He showed me the light. He showed me how wonderful and terrible these old classic NES and Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis games can be. So when I heard he was making a movie, naturally I was like... But then, I actually watched the movie and, let's just say that I wish it had a skip button. Ha! Ho ho! Funny jokes, funny. What the hell is that noise? Hold on a minute, folks. I gotta check what this is. Oh no! Oh no! Oh. Wait, just wait. Okay, hold on. Listen, just let me explain, okay?
So let's start by getting the obvious out of the way first, okay? This is a damn fine little movie. There's so much passion and energy and love and respect and hard work pouring from every nook and cranny of this film that I recommend you wear a fucking life jacket when viewing it. Seriously, you might drown, be careful. And as a film, in particular one without a studio backing it, made by amateur filmmakers, it's great. It's no Samurai Cop, but that's a different matter.
And yeah, this is the land of opportunity for legitimate business, not for death merchants who distribute drugs to our children through schools.
And if I was to judge this film as, just a film, like say I'd never heard of the Angry Video Game Nerd, and I just watched this movie, I would say it's a great little film that manages to pay homage to all that's great about geek culture, touching on everything from horror films to giant monsters to Star Trek, every 80s action movie ever made in a very respectful way. You know, it's great. But the problem is, you're not making a movie called The Angry 80s Geek Culture Nerd. You're making The Angry Video Game Nerd. So yeah, you might wanna put, you know, video games in it. But more on that later. But before we go any further, let's start by asking some pertinent questions. What is it, boys and girls, that makes The Angry Video Game Nerd and James Rolfe so awesome? Well, to find that out, we'll have to take a quick look at the series. So let's have a look at The Angry Video Game Nerd. The Angry Video Player Nerd has two things that makes it an awesome show. One is James Rolfe, and the other is the video games he reviews. You need both to make it work, okay? As interesting as it would be to watch the nerd, say, do his taxes, or go to the store, or punch a volcano in the fucking face, the fact remains that it would tire very quickly. As good as the character is, without a video game to bounce off of, he's just simply some angry dude. And God knows we got enough of those on the internet. This takes me to problem one with the movie. Very little video games. As I said, this would be fine if the movie was called something different, but it's called, hold on, let me just check here. Let me just check what it's called. Let me just check my documents here. Oh yeah, it's called The Angry Video Game Nerd Movie. So you better have some fucking anger, and you better have a movie, and you better have some goddamn video games! In the series, the show revolves around the Noid playing terrible games, battling through mountains of shit until he manages to overcome them, oftentimes destroying them in a comedic fashion, as if to avenge all the horrible lost memories from kids from the 80s that had to play these shitty games turned out by companies like AVGN that seemed to feed off of not money but the misery of children. The nerd character is really like a Ghostbuster or something. Comedically fighting against evil crap is his job, and he does it with all the grace of your average plumber. That's what makes him so awesome. He's relatable and realistic. You find yourself being drawn in by his everyday charms and his ball-busting enthusiasm until you can't help but be roaring for him to kick that shitty game's ass at the end of each episode. Now some of you may be thinking, yeah, but it is about a video game, the E.T. game, and he does review it, so there's plenty of video games. Well, while that's true, You have to admit that very little of the film in any way, shape or form has a fucking thing to do with video games. I mean, the plot of this movie is essentially that the nerd wants to prove that the E.T. games aren't buried in the desert, so people will forget about it.
To prove that there's nothing under there. Maybe then everybody can forget about this game.
So he goes to the desert, gets in trouble with the military who are doing something there, I can't remember, finds a crazy person who tells him that E.T. is actually in the base, and so he gets E.T. who tells him that some god is going to destroy the universe, and they stop him by doing something. Now, even though the E.T. game is like a map or something, the fact is that it still does very little in the movie. There's no scene where the nerd has to play the game to figure something out, or collecting all the phone pieces in the game he manages to learn something, or defeat somebody. I mean, his sidekick dude plays the game for like a minute, but he's not the angry video game nerd. You know, the character we're there to watch. Now, I'm also aware that when writing this script, James probably wanted to avoid too many game references and overuse of the show's tropes. But there's two problems with that. Number one, the film is bankrolled by fans of the show, so they're probably going to want to see the things they loved about the show in the movie.
Pop this fucker in, turn this son of a bitch on, and play some Superman.
And number two, you can still make a movie around video games and have it be fresh and interesting, just find a way to make them part of the story. Like how maybe the nerd has to use skills learned from video games in order to achieve something in the plot. Which they actually do in the movie, but it's only there for a few seconds and it has virtually no bearing on the story. Or you could have it so that at one point in the movie, the nerd needs to like build some sort of machine from his consoles, or whip out the old Nintendo Zapper and go to town for some old school shootout action scene shit, you know, 80s style, baby. There's virtually none of that in the movie. So again, to reiterate, an angry video game nerd movie needs video games in it. You know, I can't believe I have to say that. It's like, you know, telling the Nazis how to be evil. You know, you're wearing the uniform. I mean, I didn't think you needed me to teach you. I mean, you should know this stuff. You're a Nazi. You just it comes with the territory. The other thing that makes the show so awesome is James Rolfe himself. Mr. Rolfe is a product of the late 70s and 80s. Through and through, intellectually and culturally, I think he's still there. Hence his wonderful ability to make his fans feel his pain and joy for these classic video games in a way that no one else has ever been able to replicate. But his love for this period can be seen in much more than his passion for NES games. He is also a self-avowed huge fan of movies like Ghostbusters, Rocky, Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, you know, movies like this. Movies that have what I would call the 80s main character. What I mean by this is a character who is usually a simple schmuck, who decides to take on forces that he can't possibly comprehend or hope to beat, and yet somehow he manages to kick their asses, save the world, and prove that anyone can be a hero. This is what makes the nerd such an awesome character. He's like a Rocky, or one of the Ghostbusters. He takes on shitty games that caused us pain in the past, and he beats the shit out of them, finally allowing those who suffered through them in childhood to rest in peace. The problem is this movie doesn't have none of that. Mostly because the nerd wasn't fighting against a game, or really against anything. He was just being dragged around by the other characters who wanted him to do something with some vague notion of proving that the E.T. landfill story was a hoax. That's not very inspiring. I wasn't on the edge of my seat at all during this movie, except when I nearly slipped out of it out of boredom. Look, when you're making a cheesy 80s punch-the-air adrenaline awesome style movie, you keep the motivation simple. The Ghostbusters want to stop ghosts. Rocky wants to win the fight. Indiana Jones wants to get the thing. Marty McFly wants to get home, or whatever the fuck happens in those movies, I don't know. And the nerd wants to beat crappy games. One of my favourite scenes from the whole series is in his Superman 64 episode where he throws the fucking game into the sun.
The mind! It's a bunch of fuck and it doesn't belong on this planet. Somebody's gotta take care of it. This is a job for the fucking nerd.
It's cheesy, it's inspiring, it's awesome. It makes you think, fuck yeah, you fucked that shitty game up, nerd. Do it for all the kids who suffered hours of pain through that fucking thing. It feels like he's doing justice, it feels like he's doing good, it feels like he's doing righteousness. That's a thing. You know what I mean? The real sad thing is that this movie came very close to being that awesome, but something just went wrong. Everything is slightly off. Kind of like how a parallelogram looks like a square that some fat dude leant against. This movie feels like somebody sat on it and fucked it up a bit. Just by changing a few things in the script, this movie could have been the perfect angry video game nerd movie. So here's some ideas that I have that could have helped. First, make the nerd's motivation clear. Have it be that so maybe at first the nerd doesn't want to review the game, which is kind of what they did, but then after hearing that some evil corporation is going to make another one, he decides to review it to tell the world of its shitness and save the fans from suffering through another pile of Atari shit. But, shock and awe, he can't find any copies of the game. They've all mysteriously vanished. So he travels to the desert to try to dig one up. There he runs into the military and all the craziness that happens in the movie happens, okay? This small change in the script would mean that through all the wackiness in the second half of the movie, we would know and care about why the nerd is fighting against all these assholes, because he wants to get the game to review it to save us, instead of some vague notion about proving that the landfill site is fake or that ET is fake or something like that. No one cares about that. Like, have you seen that one episode of South Park, Towley? In that episode, the main characters single-mindedly attempt to recover their stolen video game console from the middle of a war between aliens, the army, paramilitary groups, big corporations, all that stuff. All this nonsense is happening which they don't give a fuck about because they just want their console back. That's funny and clever. Something similar was attempted with this movie, with the nerd being sucked into a struggle to save the ET and eventually the universe, and blah blah blah. All this craziness happens which he doesn't care about. The problem is it doesn't work because we don't know or care about what the hell the nerd is doing because it's so vague and keeps changing. He seems to flip-flop about reviewing the game or not, and it's mostly just dragged around by side characters that honestly could have been cut from the movie without losing much. Why does he even want to save E.T.? And to him it should just be pointless work. If it was revealed that E.T. had the original E.T. game that the nerd needs to review in order to save his fans, then it will make some sense to break them out. Then when E.T. says that a giant death god is going to destroy the whole fucking universe, it could be revealed that the only way to stop him is with the original game. How? By reviewing it, of course, or destroying it, angry video game nerd style. Picture it. They fly out of the base in the Top Gun plane, they fly back to the old nerd room, but they find it destroyed as a result of the monster attack. But amongst the wreckage of the old nerd room, they find a working Atari. The nerd then gathers up all the parts he needs, and in a Hot Fuzz style arming scene amidst the carnage and destruction, he delivers his holy nerd judgment on the shitty game, destroying the monster and saving the fucking universe. That, ladies and gentlemen, would have been awesome. I mean, the movie has a cool enough ending, but it didn't feel like the nerd really did anything. He wasn't bloody or battered or angry or tired. He didn't have to struggle against the odds. I mean, Christ, he had a harder time fighting Bugs fucking Bunny than he did saving the universe from a death god. The problems of this movie are basically twofold. One, we need video games in an angry video game nerd movie, and two, the nerd needs to be an underdog battling against shitty games in an over-the-top cheesy 80s way. I mean, this is still a really fine movie and all, considering the budget and how it was made, and I enjoyed watching it, especially all the technical stuff. I mean, this movie is a practical effects masterpiece. That end with the monster thing attacking the cities is classic monster movie stuff, and I love all that shit. But it's not the movie it could have been. Not due to any lack of hard work or skill, that's all there in bucket loads, but because it wasn't the movie they wanted to make. Clearly this wasn't supposed to be the angry video game nerd movie. This was supposed to be, I don't know what it was supposed to be, but it was something different. So that's my 2 cents in this movie. You know, honestly, it's a fine little flick. If you're an amateur filmmaker or you enjoy amateur movies, or even if you enjoy 80s geek culture, you're gonna love this movie, okay? It looks professionally done, it's so well made, there's so many practical effects, there's so many 80s cliches and awesome stuff in it. You'll love the movie. But if you're a hardcore fan of the angry video game nerd, who's willing to be critical of something that he loves, then this film may disappoint you a little. Or maybe it won't, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just nuts, who knows? I don't know, I don't fucking know. But I do know one thing, and that's what I have to destroy this movie, angry video game nerd style.
Take you back to the past.